So for all my true crime fans out there, there's a new movie streaming on Netflix directed by Anna Kendrick, and it's called Woman of the Hour. And I'm going to tell you guys whether or not it's worth your time. Hey guys, it's Quana back again with another review. Hope you guys are doing awesome. So today I'm going to be talking about Anna Kendrick's directorial debut. It's currently streaming on Netflix and it's called Woman of the Hour. This film, which also stars Daniel Zapata, is about the 1978 television appearance of serial killer Rodney Alcala as he appeared on the game show The Dating Game, opposite of contestant Cheryl Bradshaw. Now Cheryl was one of the lucky ones and did not lose her life to this deranged killer. At the time of his appearance, he was guilty of at least 5 murders and would go on to take part in several others. And they think that this man is possibly accountable for 100 or more murders. Whoa. Now, this movie is not a one-for-one true life story. It does take liberty with some of the events as we know them to be, but it's more about the women at the center of this. And I think that it does a really good job of telling their stories and exposing, or at least bringing to light, a system that allows things like this to happen. Now I'm going to tell you all about this movie, what I thought about it, whether or not you should give it a watch, and what I think about Anna Kendrick's directorial debut, whether she has a good chance at being a great director in her future. So let's talk about it. All right, so the film is not only directed by Anna Kendrick, but it also stars Anna Kendrick as the contestant on that dating show, Cheryl Bradshaw. Now, very little is known about the real life Cheryl Bradshaw. We do know that she no longer went into acting and had a quiet life back in Pennsylvania with her family. As we meet her character in this, she is in LA and she is an aspiring actress, and she is really going through the ills of the film industry as she goes on auditions, as she is reduced to just another woman, as she's reduced to just a body potentially in a film, and as she has to really contend with misogyny from the directors that are in front of her to her next door neighbor. It's not a good world for women at the time, and what was probably a very unfortunate experience in Hollywood for this young woman. Now, next, or opposite of her, we have Daniel Zapata, who plays Rodney Alcala in what I think is one of the best acted serial killer performances that I've seen, and I really hope that it opens up doors for this young actor instead of reducing him to only being able to play these characters, shown to be momentarily charming but also kind of creepy and weird in a way that I think makes us fearful of him and not drawn into his antics. And I think that there's some smart directing choices on behalf of Anna Kendrick that we're going to talk about later that keeps this from going too far off the railing in the way that would make this guy like a future Pinterest icon for young girls. So definitely think that that's something that I appreciated about this. The film also stars Autumn Bess as perhaps the true woman of the hour in the film, and it also has Nicolette Robinson, who I absolutely adore and was almost unrecognizable to me, which was a good thing, in a very small role, but I think in scenes that are very powerful. And I think that for what little parts people had in this movie, because there's so many stories that are being told in this 1 hour and 30-minute runtime, I think that everyone brought their A game and they were all believable in their parts, and I really appreciate that. Some other standouts about this film are the cinematography. The cinematography is absolutely stunning in this film. There's a lot of warm tones that are used and really capture the 70s aesthetic and really make you feel as though you're in a period piece. The shots don't linger too much on anything that's gory or anything that is too violent. A lot of the violence happens off screen, so that not to glamorize it, I think, which was very nice, because I've seen it could have gone the other way. It could have been much more gory. It also, I think, mirrors or echoes the fact that this serial killer was able to perpetuate a lot of these crimes in broad daylight, which makes it all the more suspenseful and all the more chilling. Let's talk about Anna Kendrick, the actress, and then talk about Anna Kendrick, the director. I will say that I enjoyed Anna Kendrick in this role, but I was also very much aware that I was watching Anna Kendrick. Now, Anna Kendrick Kendrick for me has always been one of those actresses that when I first saw her was in the movie Camp as a teen actress, and then in the Twilight film she kind of popped up and I was like, I recognize that girl, she was in Camp. And since then she's gone on to find success in films like Pitch Perfect. She is someone who I think in her younger days she channels snarkiness and sarcasm very, very well. Probably the film that she disappears for me the most is Up in the Air with George Clooney. You see her as this insecure woman who's being trained in the industry of firing people, and in that film I think she is the least like the way that she portrays herself on screen. She never fully disappeared for me in this particular role. I wish they would have done a little bit more with her costuming and with her hair in particular, because her hair just kind of always looks the same, and the real life Cheryl had very big hair. I definitely think they could have put a wig on her for this film. Yet and still I think that maybe some decisions were made to not do that because it underscored some of the major themes in the film, which I'm going to talk about later. So I'm a little torn on that decision, but Anna Kendrick, the director, has won a fan in me with this movie. And I will tell you why. This could have very much just been a film about Rodney Alcala, focusing on him, kind of making him into some sympathetic figure, which I definitely don't think can do with someone who has killed 7 or more women, potentially over 100 people, definitely victimized over 100. He was a photographer who took pictures in a very exploitive way and very sexualizing way of children. So yes, definitely no one should be sensationalizing or making this man into a sympathetic figure. And I think the way she chooses to do this is by, one, introducing us to him as that killer out the gate, so that we know every time he's interacting with someone on screen, that person is potentially going to lose their life. They're going to potentially be a victim. It also just is a very smart way to do this because it builds a lot of suspense for the rest of the movie, because we're constantly waiting for him to come into his encounter with Cheryl and what's going to happen, because we don't know the outcome of that. And also every time we see him interacting with another woman, we're also feeling constant kind of trepidation and fear for that woman, not knowing if this is going to be another one of his victims. So I thought that was a very smart way. It also kind of allows the focus to be on the victims and on their stories and on their lives in a way that definitely makes us mourn them and focus more on them, which I think is a very smart thing to do in the way that this film is told. So Anna Kendrick, the director, definitely I'm going to be on the lookout for. I thought she did a great job with her directorial debut. And no one felt like they were plopped out of 2024 and into the 1970s. Everyone felt like they fit in with the vibes, not just in their appearance and their costuming, but with the way that they were acting in a way that felt very authentic to their characters. And I really enjoyed that film. This film is tackling a lot of themes, even just so far as the title Woman of the Hour comes from one of the taglines that the game show host gives right before introducing Cheryl. He says, and now introducing the Woman of the Hour. And in that hour, she is the person who is on center stage, and she's the one being viewed by the audience as we're wondering, is she going to pick this man as the winner of the show and go on a date with him, and what's going to happen as a result of that, because we know who he is and no one else does. But also all of the victims, all of the women are women of the hour in a lot of ways, because we get to focus in on them and their stories and their narratives. So when we meet the New York victim played by Catherine Gallagher, when we meet Autumn Bess, when we meet all of the women who have these encounters with this man, they become women of hour. But I think also the film is dealing with themes around not believing victims, not listening to victims. We have a character in Nicolette Robinson who plays Laura, who's trying to alert the authorities, trying to get help, trying to let someone know who this man is, and no one's listening to her. And so often in the film, with regards to Cheryl's character, people aren't listening to her, and she's just being used or misunderstood or ignored completely. And that is an important part of why people like this man were able to commit so many crimes. This man was on the FBI watch list. He was caught several times. He was actually convicted of some crimes and was on parole and allowed to navigate and move freely throughout the country time and time again, committing these crimes, until finally someone was able to escape and bring him to justice. And at the point that he's brought to justice, there are still dozens and dozens of crimes that they believe he's linked to that they unfortunately cannot solve, because either the DNA evidence has decayed so much or because there's not enough physical evidence but that match the timeline of when he was in a certain location. And it's all because because time and time again, authorities let this man go or let him slip through their cracks. This is a man who was at the first point that he's being caught, accused of being a pedophile, and he's not being watched at, looked at, closely observed, and he's able to navigate and get away with these crimes again and again and again. And yes, it was the 70s, so less technology, but it's really just a testament to how often people don't pay attention to victims of these types of crimes, especially because these victims are mostly women and children. They were not looked at or taken as seriously. Not to make light of it, but they needed Olivia Benson, the case, definitely. Some of the other themes that I think the film is trying to tackle is just misogyny on the whole, and how while this man was committing these crimes against women and children, against their bodies, these deranged, perverted acts of violence, that there's perversion in the film industry. And I think that that's what we see by adding in those layers to Cheryl's story, by us seeing her go on these auditions and then wanting to know if she's willing to appear topless or nude, and her not wanting to do that, and them just kind of disregarding her because she's not willing to degrade herself in that way. That is definitely some parallels of it I think that she's bringing out, and I appreciated that, but I also think that it would have been nice to explore that in a much more larger way when we could just focus on that, because next to the horrific crimes that Rodney is committing, it's hard to focus in on both. I mean, ultimately Cheryl leaves and decides not to pursue Hollywood, and so we can see that she at least felt like there was a sense of hopelessness in the industry, that she wasn't going to be able to break through, not just because of her acting ability or whether that was good or bad, but just in the way that men during the time were using the quote-unquote casting couch, looking for an opportunity to get laid rather than looking for real and authentic talent, and the way that women were treated at time. It's so many layers. I think that this film is trying to navigate those conversations. I think it could have gone bigger by including more, especially with the character of Laura, Nicolette Robinson's character. I think we could have explored a whole other conversation even more in depth to the silence of the criminal industry and the fact that they weren't listening to victims, they weren't taking these things seriously, and they weren't continuing to pursue justice for these victims for a really long time. I think more could have been said there, but by and large, did I like the pacing and the flow of this movie? Absolutely. Did I like the story at the core of this? Yes. And I particularly love the choice of ending this movie the way that it does, because it leaves you with the sense of hope that this person is brought to justice, that there eventually is an end to all of this madness. There is the question of where do we go from here? But I don't think all films have to solve that. But I'm interested to know what you all think once you've had an opportunity to watch the film. Did you love it? Did you like it? It's one of those films that I really enjoyed, but I don't see myself watching it again because of the storyline. But I would imagine that people who really love true crime movies and watch those again and again, and there's some that I probably have watched more than once in the past, this probably just won't be one of them because of some of the themes involved with it. But let me know in the comments if you are going to watch this movie again and if you really enjoyed it, and I will see you guys in the next one. All right, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe, and don't forget to look around because there may be another video that you're interested in. Until next time, toodles.